The oil business was already dangerous, but Season 3 might finally push Tommy Norris into a war he cannot control. Just when it looked like he escaped the chaos of MTEX and started building something better, new threats are already forming from every direction. And the scariest part is that this time the danger is personal. Cooper is stepping into power before he is fully ready, Cammy is becoming more unpredictable than ever, and the enemies Tommy made in the past are not finished with him yet. But what really has fans talking is the latest production update, because according to new reports, Landman Season 3 could arrive much sooner than expected. And after everything that happened in Season 2, this next chapter already feels like the biggest turning point of the entire series. One thing that makes Landman different from most modern dramas is the fact that the show is never really about winning. Every season gives Tommy a new problem to solve, but even when he survives, something important is always taken away from him in the process. That is exactly why the ending of Season 2 felt so different. For the first time in a long while, Tommy did not simply survive another disaster. He actually made a choice. He walked away from MTEX, left behind the system that kept destroying his life, and decided to build something on his own terms. But if you know anything about Taylor Sheridan's shows, then you already know peace never lasts very long. Season 3 looks like it will focus heavily on Tommy trying to create a new future, while being constantly dragged back into the same violent world he tried to escape. What makes this situation so interesting is that Tommy is no longer working for somebody else. He is now building a company around people he personally trusts. That changes the emotional structure of the entire story. In the past, Tommy always felt isolated even when he was surrounded by people. He carried every burden alone because he never fully believed the people above him would protect him if things went wrong. But now, the people standing beside him are people he personally chose. And that creates a completely different kind of pressure. The biggest example of this is Cooper becoming president of the new company. Honestly, this may be one of the most important decisions Tommy has ever made. Cooper has spent most of the series trying to prove himself. Sometimes he showed real maturity, and other times he looked completely overwhelmed by the world around him. But Tommy clearly sees something bigger in him. Instead of protecting Cooper from responsibility, Tommy is throwing him directly into the fire. That tells us Season 3 will probably push Cooper harder than ever before, and the timing could not be worse, because Cooper's life is finally starting to stabilize. His relationship with Ariana feels stronger now, and for once he is beginning to imagine a future that is not built around fear and survival. But Landman has never been the kind of show that allows happiness to stay untouched for very long. The situation involving Ariana's attacker may be legally finished, but emotionally and politically, it still feels unresolved. The detectives pushed too hard during that investigation for the story to simply disappear. Powerful people were connected to that man, and those people are likely still angry about how everything ended. That is exactly why Season 3 could become much darker than fans expect. Instead of fighting legal battles, Cooper may suddenly find himself dealing with threats that operate outside the law completely. Revenge, intimidation, sabotage, and even violence could start surrounding him from every direction. And because he is now connected to Tommy's new company, every attack against Cooper becomes an attack against Tommy as well. This creates the possibility of a full-scale conflict that affects every character at once. At the same time, Tommy himself may be entering the most emotionally dangerous period of his life. Walking away from MTech sounds empowering on paper, but starting over is never easy, especially in an industry controlled by money, influence, and corruption. Tommy is trying to build something cleaner and more loyal, but the oil business does not reward honesty for very long. The moment his new company starts gaining attention, enemies will begin watching closely. Some competitors will see Tommy as a threat. Others will see him as an opportunity to destroy somebody who already knows too much. And then there is Cammy, who honestly might become the most important character of the entire season. After Monty's death, she tried to convince herself that holding on to MTEX was about strength and leadership. But deep down, it also felt deeply personal. MTEX became connected to her identity. Losing the company would mean admitting that she could not carry forward the empire that Monty built. That is why her storyline feels so unpredictable right now. Part of her genuinely wants to prove she deserves power, but another part of her may already realize she is losing control of everything around her. The most dangerous thing about Cammy is that isolation changes people. Tommy is gone. Nate refused to replace him. Even the people who once respected M-Tex seem more loyal to Tommy than to the company itself. Cammy is now trapped in a position where every decision feels like a test she cannot afford to fail. And when people become desperate in Taylor Sheridan stories, they usually make reckless choices. There are really two paths Season 3 could take with her character. The first path is redemption. Cammy could finally accept reality and realize M-Tex cannot survive without major changes. That could push her toward Tommy, possibly even asking him for guidance despite everything that happened between them. Honestly, that would create some of the strongest emotional scenes in the entire series because both characters understand each other better than they want to admit. But the second path is the one fans should probably fear more. Cammy could decide to fight for control no matter the cost. If that happens, she may slowly transform from an unstable ally into a direct enemy. And what makes that possibility terrifying is the fact that she knows Tommy's weaknesses better than almost anyone else. She understands how he thinks, how he negotiates, and how emotionally attached he becomes to the people around him. If she weaponizes that knowledge, Tommy's new company could collapse before it even truly begins. What makes all of this even more exciting is the latest production updates surrounding Season 3. According to recent reports, the production team is moving much faster than expected. Episodes are reportedly being edited while filming is still happening, which is usually a very strong sign that Paramount wants the next season released quickly. Right now, there is growing belief that Landman Season 3 could arrive by late 2026, possibly much earlier than many fans originally expected. And honestly, that timing makes sense because the momentum behind the show is becoming impossible to ignore. The success of Landman surprised a lot of people during its early run, but Season 2 proved the series has grown far beyond a simple oil industry drama. At this point, the show is really about power, loyalty, survival, and the emotional damage caused by living inside a world where every decision carries consequences. That deeper emotional tension is what keeps audiences invested. Fans are not just watching for explosions or business deals anymore. They are watching because these characters feel constantly one bad decision away from disaster. And Season 3 may finally test every relationship in ways we have never seen before. Tommy is trying to become a leader instead of just a survivor. Cooper is trying to become a man capable of carrying responsibility. Ariana is trying to build a stable future while danger still surrounds her. Cammy is fighting to hold on to her identity before everything slips away. Every single storyline feels like it is moving toward a breaking point at the exact same time. And if Landman continues following the same storytelling style we saw in previous seasons, then somebody important may not survive what is coming next. The most dangerous thing about Tommy's new beginning is that he probably believes he finally has control again. After everything he survived at M-Tex, walking away felt like freedom. No more answering to people who only cared about profits. No more cleaning up disasters created by executives sitting safely behind office walls. For once, Tommy gets to build the rules himself. But Landman has always been a story about how quickly power can become a trap, and Season 3 looks ready to prove that lesson again in the worst possible way. What really stands out right now is how different Tommy's new company feels compared to M-Tex. The structure itself tells us a lot about where the story is going. Cooper becoming president is not just a business decision. It is Tommy trying to create a legacy. Deep down, Tommy probably knows he cannot keep living this life forever. The stress, the violence, the pressure, all of it has been slowly wearing him down since Season 1. So now he is trying to prepare somebody else to eventually take over. But there is a huge problem with that plan. Cooper still sees the oil business differently than Tommy does. Tommy learned to survive by expecting betrayal everywhere. He trusts almost nobody completely because experience taught him that loyalty in this industry usually disappears the moment money gets involved. Cooper, however, still has pieces of innocence left in him. Even after everything he went through, he continues trying to believe people can be good. And honestly, that difference between them may become the emotional center of Season 3. Because if Cooper starts making decisions based on trust instead of caution, the consequences could become catastrophic. One wrong partnership, one careless agreement, Or one emotional decision could expose the company to enemies before it is fully stable. And the terrifying part is that Cooper probably will not even realize he is making mistakes until it is too late. Tommy understands how dangerous the game is because he spent years inside it. Cooper is only beginning to understand what real power actually costs. At the same time, the pressure surrounding Cooper's personal life is growing fast. His relationship with Ariana feels stronger than ever, and fans are already starting to believe a wedding is coming soon. Honestly, the show has been carefully building toward that possibility for a while now. After all the pain both characters experienced, marriage almost feels like the natural emotional payoff. But that is exactly why many fans are nervous. In shows like Landman, happiness often becomes the setup for tragedy. The unresolved fallout from Ariana's attacker still hangs over the story like a storm waiting to hit. Legally, the situation may be finished, but emotionally, it feels far from over. The investigation exposed powerful connections, and people with influence rarely accept humiliation quietly. That is why Season 3 could introduce a much more personal kind of danger. Instead of open legal threats, Cooper and Ariana may suddenly find themselves targeted through intimidation, surveillance, financial pressure, or even violence designed to send a message. And honestly, if something terrible happens around their wedding, it could completely change Cooper forever. Up until now, Cooper has always tried to hold on to some level of morality. But trauma changes people in Sheridan dramas. We have seen it happen again and again. Characters who begin with compassion slowly become colder after suffering repeated losses. If Cooper experiences another devastating tragedy, Season 3 could transform him into somebody far more dangerous than Tommy ever expected. Meanwhile, Tommy's own emotional struggles are becoming harder to ignore. One thing Landman does brilliantly is showing how exhausting leadership actually is. Tommy constantly carries the emotional weight of everyone around him. He protects people, fixes disasters, negotiates conflicts, and absorbs pressure from every direction. But who actually protects Tommy? That question has quietly existed underneath the entire series from the beginning. Now that he is building his own company, the burden becomes even heavier because failure would not just affect him anymore, it would destroy the futures of everyone who trusted him enough to follow him out of MTech's. That kind of responsibility changes a person. And Season 3 may finally push Tommy to a point where he begins questioning whether this new dream was worth the risk in the first place. Then there is Rebecca, who honestly might become one of the smartest players in the entire story moving forward. Fans already love her because she brings stability into situations that constantly feel ready to explode. Making her COO and chief counsel was one of Tommy's best decisions because she understands both the business side and the legal dangers surrounding the company. But what makes Rebecca interesting is that she sees problems long before everybody else does. I think Season 3 will likely position Rebecca as the person constantly warning Tommy about dangers he is too emotionally distracted to notice. Tommy leads with instinct. Rebecca leads with calculation. That balance could become essential once outside threats start targeting the company. And if Cammy eventually becomes an enemy, Rebecca may actually be the first person to recognize how serious the situation truly is. Speaking of Cammy, her storyline feels more dangerous every time you really think about it. The emotional isolation surrounding her right now is honestly terrifying. She lost Monty, lost Tommy, and slowly lost the loyalty of the people who once helped keep MTech's functioning. The company is becoming weaker, but instead of accepting reality, she may start clinging to control even harder. And that is where things become really complicated emotionally because Cammy is not a traditional villain. She is grieving, insecure, desperate, and trying to prove herself in an industry that constantly underestimates her. Part of the audience sympathizes with her because they understand why she refuses to let go. But sympathy can disappear very quickly if desperation starts pushing her toward destructive choices. Imagine if Cammy begins targeting Tommy's new company not because she hates him, but because she genuinely believes he abandoned her during the worst moment of her life. That emotional motivation would make the conflict far more tragic than a simple business rivalry. It would feel personal on every level. Tommy may try to negotiate peacefully at first, but if Cammy keeps escalating the situation, He could eventually be forced to fight back against somebody he once cared about deeply. That emotional complexity is exactly why Landman continues standing out from other modern dramas. The show understands that the best conflicts are never fully black and white. Every character believes they are justified in their actions. Even when they make terrible choices, their motivations still feel understandable. And Season 3 seems ready to push that moral ambiguity further than ever before. Another character who could quietly become very important is Ainsley. A lot of viewers still underestimate her because earlier seasons presented her as immature and spoiled. But Season 2 already started planting the idea that there is much more happening beneath the surface. Moving away for college creates distance between her and the chaos surrounding Tommy's world, but that distance may actually help her grow into one of the smartest characters in the family. For the first time, Ainsley is being forced to exist outside the protection of home. She cannot rely on her mother or Tommy to solve every problem anymore. She has to figure out who she actually wants to become. And honestly, that kind of independence could completely transform her personality during Season 3. But there is also another possibility the show may explore. What if Ainsley finally sees the emotional damage this lifestyle causes from an outside perspective? Up until now, chaos has always felt normal to her because she grew up surrounded by it. But college exposes people to different ways of thinking, different futures, different values. Ainsley may eventually start questioning whether the oil business destroys everyone connected to it. If that happens, it could create serious tension between her and Tommy. He believes he is building a future for his family, but what if his daughter begins seeing that future as toxic instead of protective? That emotional conflict could become incredibly powerful because Tommy's entire identity revolves around sacrificing himself for the people he loves. Realizing those sacrifices may not actually save them would completely shake him emotionally. And the craziest part is that all these storylines are colliding at the exact same time. Tommy is trying to build an empire. Cooper is trying to prove himself. Cammy is trying not to lose control. Ariana is trying to find peace after trauma. Ainsley is trying to discover her own identity. Every character is entering Season 3 emotionally vulnerable in different ways, which usually means disaster is coming. Because if there is one thing Taylor Sheridan's stories consistently show, it is that people are often destroyed right when they finally believe life is getting better. One thing fans need to prepare for in Season 3 is the possibility that Tommy's new company may not survive in the form he imagined. Right now, everything sounds hopeful on the surface. He has loyal people around him, a cleaner structure, and finally enough freedom to make his own decisions. But Landman has never rewarded optimism for very long. In fact, the moment characters start believing they are safe is usually the exact moment everything begins collapsing around them. And honestly, there are already warning signs everywhere. The oil industry inside this show has always operated like a battlefield hidden behind expensive suits and business meetings. Power is never permanent. The moment somebody rises too fast, other people immediately start looking for ways to tear them down. Tommy knows that better than anyone. That is why it feels strange seeing him genuinely hopeful again. Part of him clearly believes this new company could become something better than MTEX ever was. But hope can also blind people, especially people who are emotionally exhausted. Season 3 may finally explore the consequences of Tommy trying to carry too many responsibilities at once. He is mentoring Cooper, protecting the company, managing negotiations, handling family problems, and still dealing with emotional scars left behind by everything that happened before. At some point, something has to break. The pressure is simply becoming too heavy. And the scary part is that Tommy probably will not notice the damage until it is already too late. One of the most interesting directions the show could take is exposing weaknesses inside Tommy's own team. Right now, everybody appears united because they all believe in the dream he is selling. But loyalty becomes much more complicated once real money and real danger enter the picture. If outside competitors start targeting the company aggressively, cracks could begin forming between people who currently trust each other completely.